Whenever we do a video about the state of the comic book industry or what the industry needs to do in order to, get its old glory back, one of the inevitable recommendations is that the comic book industry adopt a manga style of release. Now, what does that mean? I take it to mean releasing stories in full volume chunks, getting away from the monthly, grind of floppies and doing, full arcs released in one whole shot. Just like one trade, one graphic novel. Here's this piece of the story. Next trade, the next piece of the story, and so on. Essentially, the model we have, but removing floppies from the equation altogether, and that would save the comic book industry. I have answered this question or responded to that idea probably at this point 100 times in our comment section.
Oh, that's
Do
all.
you, maybe even more, quite frankly? I'm trying to get it out of my mind. Do you guys agree with that idea? And also, of course, keep in mind that DC has now just released the Compact Comics initiative, which some people equate to manga. So, with that in mind, where are you guys at? Marco.
I kind of equate it more to the compact style. Like when I think of manga style, I think of the size and the affordability. Um, those are the biggest selling points in my mind for manga. You have certain publications that are in uh, trade magazines, so they do come out weekly or monthly for that matter. But I think when it comes to the collected, to your point, the collected editions, in my mind, and I feel like in most readers' mind for manga, it's a more square book, smaller size, fits in my backpack, and costs between $10 to $15. Um, the fact that they're trying an initiative like this, I think, means that at the very least, it's worth testing. I don't know that it sticks around because of the historical, what is it, 11 by 8 typical sizing for a comic book. But there's tradition there. And I think there's also tradition in manga that when you try to merge the two, maybe you get a misstep.
I think the thing that jumps out to me is that like they're similar. Like American Western comics and manga are similar in what they aim to do, but they are completely different in terms of the output of it. I don't think we can really get rid of weekly slash monthly comics to then go into a manga format. Like even when I used to read manga, I was reading Naruto and I used to pirate the weekly issues because I had to get the translation. And that was the only way to get the translation quickly. I would eventually then grab the little digest size manga collections, but that's just how I read manga. In my eyes, like the way of storytelling and the way of the actual content of the book is just so much different than, say, a Bendis Spider-Man book. There's those books like Marvel and DC are written for that. It's for the issues, and then they get collected. That's how they compress the storytelling. That's how they pace things out. Changing that and changing it to be a more manga format, you'd have to change the actual way comics are written as well.
Hmm.
Which I don't think. I think people just think, oh, I could just slap a manga skin on it, and this is how I'm releasing it now. And it's not that simple.
Really weirdly, I think Bendis might be the most manga of the big two writers. So walk with me here. So in manga style, right? A big part of establishing a place is really taking the moment to take in the intricate detail of a place. And often that means spending time in a certain place with certain characters and in the mundanity of what they're doing. That's a lot of Bendis speak.
Hmm.
Bendis puts a lot of effort into getting these little isms into his character so that they have a little quirk that will make you remember who they are. That just came to me.
Brilliant.
I think one of the problems of the I guess not translations, but the comparison of Western comics to manga a lot of time comes down to color.
Hmm.
Especially in the modern age, I do not think there's a way a modern comic reader, especially of the big two, is gonna go back to black and white comics. I just don't think that's gonna happen.
And that's a production thing, right? To be able to put things out quicker and more en
Yeah.
masse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
And
Portability.
then with lettering, in manga, there aren't letterers. They send the art off to the printing press, I guess, the printers, and the printers pick the font, they do the thing, put the words on the page, and they ship it out.
Wow.
Oh,
Well,
uh, I think one of the other things that a lack of comparison is the fact that superheroes, the big two, are created in a cyclical format where the story is for manga a start to an end, and that actually reminds me more of a Vertigo publication, a Young Animal publication. Like it's more of that with the introduction of a new character where the overarching publisher is that a publisher. It's not a company that will continue to milk the IP of Batman. Instead, you get Batman, his story finishes, and then you get another character that gets introduced because DC publishes comics, not necessarily Batman or Superman or Wonder Woman comics. They do, obviously, but the more direct comparison for me in my mind is that Vertigo piece, that Image piece. And they're the first places that I feel like you would make the leap to manga format because there you have, if the book finishes, a start and end.
I always get tripped up by this because I really like want to understand what people think is going to happen, like even just from a logistical standpoint. So, all right, you start from 1 with Batman, right? Like you start literally from the beginning and you reprint every single Batman comic book from volume 1 to now. How do you present that? Because that is an extremely long period of time, right? That's like what, 80 years or something? And you're going to go from volume 1 to bind every 6 issues or 12 issues into a volume and so on and so forth. We'd be up to volume, like, I don't even know how to quantify that. Would you break it out by creative team? So Batman by Morrison and, whichever artist was a part of that volume, I guess. Volume 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 until you're done. And then do you do Batman by Snyder, volume XYZ? Do you just do that? Like, I don't think that works.
you cannot be retrofit at all. Think about the books that are like
Yeah.
ongoing titles that have crossover issues. Do you just not get the second? Like, think of X-Men in the 90s. Like, that in manga format just wouldn't work. It wouldn't retrofit correctly.
But even if you did it going forward, we would still have the same problem. There's going to be a creative handoff.
Yeah.
How do you do that? There is no, correct me if I'm wrong, there is no creative handoff for like One Piece, right? It's
Never will be.
One guy.
how would you describe that? What if someone just doesn't care to move on with the book anymore? They don't care about the next creative team. And then how do you show that on the thing? Is this just the next volume? There are so many questions. I just don't think it applies.
The only situation where I think that could happen was like Dragon Ball Super, right? New artists on that one, so it wasn't the original creator, but more of the characters moving forward. But it had that addendum to it, Dragon Ball Super. So I don't know if we get like Batman Super, but like no, because then we'll get that every 2 years.
It would happen. Yeah, it would happen too fast.
We'd lose words, honestly.
And there's another factor that has to be expressed, and it's a factor that no one in the history of this conversation has been able to adequately address to me, which is the factor of money. Comic books right now are pretty much the biggest ones you want to buy are $4.99. Okay, and the average manga volume is $10 to $15. The average trade is 5 times 6. So it's not coming out to $10 for you. Creators are already not getting paid what they're worth. You can't solve that problem. That's not a solvable problem. You cannot get comic books to a place where you could charge $10 for 6 issues, 6 new issues. Fuck compact. That is a different situation. For 6 new issues, I'm not even going to say 12, just 6 for $10, that cannot ever happen. And the first people to lose in that scenario, if it were to happen, would be the creators. So they would leave. And then you would get scabs who just are desperate to work at Marvel and DC and will work for pennies. But the stories won't be good.
Even in manga, there's just less cooks in the kitchen for an individual title. Like we have a lot of mouths to feed, and there's a lot of slices of the pie in American comics.
Well, and even still, like, I don't know that the prices and the way they pay creators is enough either.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's also a massive problem. And the only way to get money is to get an anime adaptation.
And it's way, way better here than it is over there.
Yeah.
As bad as the treatment of creators here can be, we know that it's worse over there. So to me, I care more about the creators being treated well. I mean, how often do those volumes come out? I saw one guy, I'm not even going to say who it was, suggest on our Discord server the idea that they put out 1 page a day of these comics. Can you imagine somebody like a Greg Capullo or a Pepe Larraz getting 1 page a day, drawn, colored, and lettered? Forget the words. Drawn, colored, and lettered in 1 day, every day. That's impossible.
Oh, you're saying to release one to finish a page a day, not even release a page a day. Okay.
I mean,
to release,
that's
but you wouldn't even be able to do that. Like you wouldn't even be able to keep up with that type of schedule.
There's very much like a grind culture to it in Japan and for manga. I mean, what you're saying happens for manga. It's terrible, and the conditions are for those creators pretty shitty. There's definitely stories of just continual work hours. You know, I didn't sleep for 3 days, all that kind of stuff to meet deadline, and the only way that they become successful is economies of scale. It has to become popular enough over a certain threshold. Otherwise, your book, your title, whatever, is going to sink. You've invested money into it, and you will lose.
And look at the creator of Berserk. What is it? Kentaro Miura. Pretty much wrote himself to death.
And that's a hugely popular book.
Yeah.
And I just want to be clear, died at the table.
Yeah, fucking killed over.
Like this wasn't a case of, he went to the hospital and like my man died at the table.
And that is not cool. That sucks. And that's something that I feel like a lot of the people who make these sorts of suggestions just simply don't consider. Not that they don't care, but they just don't consider it. It's like, I just want my manga, and that's cool, dude, but there is a human price to pay for all of this stuff. And I am ultimately not a believer that format fits Western comics. I really have never heard it explained in a way that makes sense. And I challenge you guys that are listening, if you disagree with me, if you feel like this could work, make your case. Make your case.
Let's see the pitch decks.
We didn't We didn't even get into how you would have to retrain modern readers to accept a different style when most of us say if floppies go, we go. We don't even need to get into that. Just answer how you could take the manga styling and apply it to Western comics in the comment section. I'll be waiting. Until then, take care, guys.